Hello and welcome to the EcoCast by Actual Tech Media. Today's topic, Tool Time, assessing and selecting your next infrastructure and application monitoring tools. On this event, you'll hear from experts at Outsystems, Gigamon, Progress, Nutanix, and SUSE. Thank you so much for joining us on the EcoCast. We've got a great event lined up for you. Before we jump into it, just a few things that you should know about the event. We want this to be an educational event here at Actual Tech Media. We're all former IT professionals ourselves, and we know how tough things can be in the world of enterprise IT when it comes to dealing with challenges and finding solutions. And that's the goal of this event, to help you to find solutions to your IT challenges. And we've got some really innovative enterprise technology tools to help you do that. We encourage you to use the questions box there in your audience console, and we'll be doing dedicated Q&A sessions with each of today's expert presenters. We also have a number of poll questions, which I'll be asking you throughout the event. When it comes to prizes, we have 3 Amazon $500 gift cards to give out on the EcoCast today, and I'll be announcing those prize winners throughout the event. And then we also have our best question prizes, which I'll be talking about in just a moment. We want this to be a social event, and we encourage your great feedback and sharing over on Twitter. You can tweet directly from your audience console using the Twitter icon on the bottom of the screen, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically appended. We also have a number of resources available for download in the Handouts tab. I encourage you to check those out. The prizes on the EcoCast today are 3 Amazon $500 gift cards. You must be live in attendance to qualify. As I said, we'll be announcing the prize winners throughout the webinar, and you can find the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions there in the Handouts tab. All prize winners must be able to submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media. For 2021, we've started doing our Best Question prize. This is for an Amazon $50 gift card for each of the 4 sessions on the event today. Prize winners will be selected at Actual Tech Media discretion after the event and will be contacted via email. All prize winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize policy. Thanks to generous prize winners, we have donated thousands of dollars to charities over the years. If you win a prize, of course, you always have the option to donate the prize value to charity, and we would love to help you do that. We've donated to the Diane Fossey Gorilla Fund and One Tree Planted in partnership with the Gorilla Guide Book Club. You can find a link to the gorilla.guide website there in your Handouts tab, where you can download free educational IT books. Make sure that you check that out. The hashtag for today is ATM EcoCast over on Twitter. I'll be following the hashtag. You can follow Actual Tech Media and me as well, David M. Davis. We encourage you to subscribe to all the Actual Tech Media channels, YouTube, Facebook, and the 10 on Tech podcast, as well as our LinkedIn channel. You can find links to all of those on the top right-hand side of your audience console. Now, before we do a couple of poll questions here on the EcoCast today, and I introduce you to our first expert presenter, I want to talk briefly about the tools of IT, the tools of the trade. I mean, we don't have wrenches or spanners and hammers and screwdrivers, although sometimes we use those when we assemble servers in the rack, for example. Typically, the tools of the trade in IT are software and hardware. While we might not be working on jet engines, we do have the equivalent of jet engines when it comes to things like CPU, memory, storage, and of course network bandwidth. But more and more, the software that runs on top of those types of solutions is just as important, if not more important, than the underlying hardware. When you're troubleshooting the network, identifying a performance bottleneck, or rapidly trying to bring up new applications at your company, the tools that you have available to you are more critical than ever. When it comes to what to look for in tools, we always need to boost efficiency. We have to do more with less continually in the world of IT. So we need tools that can help to make us the superheroes of IT and boost our efficiency. We also need to reduce complexity. There's just way too much complexity in the world of IT. And honestly, it slows us down and it makes changes and troubleshooting and scaling so much harder than it should be. So the more solutions we can find to reduce that complexity will naturally boost our efficiency, as well as improve scalability, availability, and performance. We're always looking for tools to help us accomplish that. We have expectations of simply 100% uptime and maximum performance 24/7. And more enterprise IT is simply expected to have unlimited scalability, just like the web scalers in the cloud. Another critical expectation in IT is to always have our applications and data secure and prevent ransomware. This is a bigger problem than ever before. So we're continually on the lookout for tools to help us maximize our security defenses while allowing us to offer new services or streamline existing services. We need to bring up new applications, streamline existing applications, and at the same time, help our company to save money or make more money. And one of the ways to do that is to either reduce staff, but more likely, because the number of projects in IT is unending, refocus our staff on things that actually make the company money, make a real difference for the company, our customers, and our clients. And then even solutions that will help us to reduce the need for other tools. In many cases, we simply have a case of tool sprawl, and we need to reduce the number of tools, which in the end comes back to that reduction of complexity and boosting of efficiency. So when you select new tools or solutions or replacements for existing or aging solutions, make sure that you remember that support of the solution is always important. You want to find out as much about the support, organization, and response as you can before you select a tool. Learn from other customers, find out about case studies and references. Also, keep in mind that no solution is an island. All tools are integrated with other tools, so that integration is important. You want to make sure that you take time to analyze total cost of ownership and return on investment of these tools, but also at the same time, look for soft costs. We talked about allowing your staff to refocus on things that really make a difference for the company. It's not just always about hard costs. And of course, look for ways to try before you buy. Do a proof of concept. So those are my tips when it comes to what to look for when selecting tools for your enterprise IT organization. And with that, let's do a couple of poll questions before we get started. All right, I've just brought up the first poll question. It's here on the screen. Simple question. What are your top IT projects for 2021? And I put on there what I think, some of the possibilities might be: improving security, streamlining processes, improving efficiency, improving data protection, disaster recovery, cloud migration, new apps, or modernizing existing applications. I know that's a big focus. Security, ransomware prevention, and could be another project not listed there. And if so, I encourage you just drop it in the questions box, because we want to hear from you. I will share the project that you said is not listed with everyone, and that will allow me to improve the poll in the future, and also see how you stack up with your peers on the event today. If you haven't answered these types of polls before, you just do it right there in the slides window on your screen. All right, lots of good responses coming in. Thank you for that. Let me go ahead and share the responses with you. And it looks like the top selection here was simply improving security kind of across the board, 60%, 40% improving processes, improving efficiency, followed by ties around data protection, cloud migration, new apps, modernizing apps. Oh, and I missed, sorry, ransomware prevention at 44%. 4% of you out there said projects not listed. So let's see, William said hardware upgrade, upgrading network hardware out there. Thank you for that feedback. Welcome any other feedback around your top projects for 2021 and beyond. And with that, let's move on to our second and last poll here before I introduce you to our first presenter. And this is simply around your time frame. Like, what's your time frame for implementing new solutions when it comes to anything you learn about on the event today, or these types of projects that you're talking about? If you need a new solution or replace an existing solution, for example, modernizing applications, what's your time frame? I'll leave that one up for a moment, let everyone respond to that. All right, thank you for that feedback. And with that, it's time to kick off the EcoCast. I'm excited now to introduce you to our first presenter. Welcome, Phil Bartholo, Senior Solutions Architect at Outsystems. Phil, are you there?
Oh, thank you. So thanks everybody for joining, and I look forward to presenting my talk about tools and monitoring as it relates to modern application platforms. It was interesting to see the survey you just ran. Obviously, security is a big focus for IT everywhere, and that matches what we see in our customers as well as building and maintaining new applications in the next 6 to 24 months. So that's really interesting, and we're seeing that in our customer base as well. And a big part of that involves tools and monitoring that not only address security, but scalability and maintenance of your applications. And that's what I'll be talking about today. So first, I work for Outsystems, and we provide what we call a modern application platform. And let me define that a little bit. So the idea is that you should be working on problems that address your business needs. And any time spent retiring legacy debt or fixing infrastructure, upgrading infrastructure, bringing in new versions is not time that is helping your business and helping you make money, cut costs, or reduce risk. So the idea of a modern application platform is to help you perform digital transformations and maintain your applications by building applications fast, building them right, and building them for the future so that maintaining them is not costly and you can keep up with the pace of business. So what I'm going to do is dive a little bit deeper into what that means in a modern application platform, then shift the focus to tooling and monitoring with these platforms, as well as using the types of tooling and monitoring tools you already have. And lastly, I want to show it in action a little bit, show some of the monitoring tools that we have available so you can compare to what you're using now. Okay, but first, in terms of defining a modern application platform, what is it? It is a platform that allows you to build and maintain full stack applications that integrate and extend so that you can connect to other systems and implement any logic you want. It maintains the full life cycle of those applications and allows you to deliver experiences through multiple channels, okay? And all of that needs to be in a platform that gives you the scalability and security that you need. So if we dive down one more level, what do these things mean? Well, for a full stack application, rather than using traditional development technologies, the better approach is to use a visual canvas. Now, some of you may have heard of the low-code space. So low-code is a part of a modern application platform. In fact, Outsystems and other platforms are covered by Gartner and Forrester in the low-code space, and that's something that has got a lot of attention. But it's only part of the story, because building applications really is a small part of the total cost of maintaining the application through the lifetime for your users. So Outsystems provides an integrated development environment called Service Studio, where you can develop the data, process, logic, and UI layers of the application, thus making them full stack without compromising the ability to add any complexity you wish in terms of complexity of logic, complexity of data structures, complexity of pixel-perfect user interfaces. Okay? Now, for integrating and extending the platform, for a long time, platforms have existed that give you connectors. So you can connect to the most popular software packages, SAP, Oracle Financials, Workday, and the like. But really, that limits you to what the vendor of the platform predicts you will want to do with those connections. So if you have moved outside of those connections, you're stuck and you hit a wall. So a modern application platform will give you all the flexibility to go to the web services layer, be it REST, SOAP, or OpenAPI, and implement custom integrations. They can integrate to enterprise systems that do not have standard integration methods, but have custom integration methods via an API library or HTTP-based integration, file-based integration, whatever they use, and also the ability to connect to databases that are relational, non-relational, in a flexible manner that does not rely on the vendor predicting on what you need. And Outsystems makes that possible by giving you a library and a community of components. We have thousands of components. Many of them are connectors. Many of them are contributed by the community. If we see a need, our company will create a connector, and all of these are available for free so that you don't hit a wall when implementing the platform. Now, when you go into the full life cycle, this is recognition of the fact that maintaining applications are a lot of work and very important, and applications will hit a dead end if you can't adjust your business processes, make them fit for purpose as your business evolves. So modern application platforms address the full life cycle of the applications, not only in terms of DevOps, but governance, the monitoring that you need to do, even collecting user feedback from your stakeholders, so that you can build a continuous integration, continuous delivery pipeline that is efficient and, again, helps you keep up with the business demands. And lastly, the experiences. It takes a lot of work with traditional development technologies to build web, mobile, and make all those applications work together seamlessly. With a modern application platform, you can have these components that are used through all the different channels. So you can build traditional web, native mobile applications, hybrid mobile applications, but then you can also provide API layers for your partners and even internal groups to use to access your application functionality and data, and you can deliver other channels that are chat, voice, email, SMS, and whatever else comes in the future that becomes the de facto standard for interacting with your users. So in a way, these platforms future-proof you, so your investment in building these applications are protected and you can stay modern moving forward. Okay, so now that we have well-defined a modern application platform, let me first, before we go into tools and monitoring, let me give you an example. T-Mobile is one of the Outsystems customers, and I won't go through all the details of this use case. This slide deck will be available for you to download. But the thing to keep in mind is that they were able to have parallel teams all over the world build 61 applications in 9 months. They were retooling and refactoring from another platform. And really, you can only achieve speeds like that and efficiency like that if you maximize your reusability, if you implement the type of governance, and you have a solid security framework that allows you to concentrate on only your business problems and be focused on implementing functionality. So that's an example of what a modern application platform is able to give you. Okay. Now, monitoring and security and governance really plays a different role throughout the adoption journey of a modern application platform. When you get started, you may only have one app or ultimately evolve into a few apps. You're probably not going to be taxing your systems. Infrastructure monitoring plays a lesser role. Most of your monitoring will be at the application level to observe how your users are using it, maybe introspect specific use cases, okay? But when you start scaling, then you have multiple teams working together. You're building many apps per year you're building a center of excellence around your application factory, that is when you're going to really need to rely on your monitoring, tooling, and security parameters governance to make sure all the different teams are not building applications that are in conflict with each other or affecting each other's performance. Your systems are scaling up to access data of hundreds of millions of records or supporting traffic of hundreds of thousands of requests per second. Okay, but it's important to plan your tooling, infrastructure, and monitoring needs up front in the beginning so that you are not scrambling later on in the journey while you're evolving and scaling, because then you don't have time to adjust and implement, and then it becomes technical debt, and you have to stop innovating, and you have to go back and fix the problem. Okay, so modern application platforms give you what you need from the start, and you can implement governance, security, and monitoring as needed as your use of the platform grows. So now let's dive a little bit deeper into monitoring. Really, there are two parts of monitoring. One is the observation portion, where you will proactively introspect and observe your systems all the way from application level down to infrastructure level. And there are a lot of tools in the market that does that. I'm assuming the audience for this session is familiar with many of them. You probably use them already. And then there's the reactive portion of setting up alerting systems should something happen that needs to be dealt with by somebody in IT. Okay, and so IT departments will create these two channels of monitoring from the same data store that has your monitoring information. Now, this slide makes it look easy, right? You have all your data, and that has your monitoring data, and you can observe and alert. Now, most IT departments have to do a lot of work to aggregate this data. Right? You have your .NET applications, your Java applications. You may have some legacy systems like Lotus Notes. You may have enterprise systems like SAP, Oracle Financials. So it's not trivial, and you spend a lot of effort aggregating this data. If you could consolidate and gradually move into a modern application platform, that work goes away. And that's what customers like T-Mobile are doing with Outsystems. In Outsystems, the platform itself provides the monitoring view for you to get started monitoring all these applications. So there are two applications that I'll show you, Service Center and Lifetime Analytics. They provide the traditional logging and visual inspection of your systems, and again, at the different levels, starting with application level down to infrastructure level. But in addition, all this data is available within the platform, so you can connect Outsystems to your monitoring systems that you're already using. So, for example, if you use Dynatrace or New Relic, you connect it to using the Outsystems connectors that are available, and you can continue using those tools. And that's especially useful when you're in transition from more traditional applications to a modern application platform, so that you can have a single pane of glass through your entire IT ecosystem. So we realize that IT is not a blank canvas. You're not going to throw everything away and restart, and some things you may never move over to a new platform. So our philosophy is to provide this connectivity the entire time. And in addition to the existing tools that are out in the market, our community called The Forge has connectors and their own monitoring tools that are available that you can use, and they're all open source, so you can extend them to give you a fit-for-purpose view of what you need. Okay, So at this point, I'm going to share my screen. David, I'm going to ask you if you're seeing it properly in a second here. David, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir. It looks good.
Great. So first, I'm going to show you an application, and then I will show you the monitoring view we have into that application from different monitoring options that we provide. It doesn't really matter what this application does. It happens to be an order management application for sales reps to enter orders, and it was built just as an example in a couple of weeks. It's actually a good example of what type of application a modern application platform can build, and you know, we use it to show off our integration to Salesforce, for example. Here, Salesforce accounts, and SAP here, SAP invoices. But what I wanted to show you a little bit is the business process portion of it, of creating an order. So I will quickly create an order. You can see the custom UI that is possible with the platform. If I save the order, let's put some chainsaws in the order, give it a discount. You can see this one happens to use the React.js JavaScript framework. The developer doesn't need to know about that. They just use our IDE that I showed earlier, and it'll automatically create a modern UI for them. So you can maximize the development talent you already have without having them continuously having to learn new technologies. So here we created an order, and you can see the platform provides widgets that will visually show you the business process flow, and it can be hierarchical. So this is the order fulfillment and the order approval process. So this order needs to be approved. And if a sales manager would show up, they would see the order needing approval. They can approve the order, and then the order process details would show the new status, and it would show the completed approval. Now, all of this functionality did not have to be developed. It just consists of widgets that are put together and that work together to build your solution fast in an IDE. You can generally build solutions 6 to 10 times faster than using traditional development technologies like Java and .NET. And you don't need a computer science background. The training to build mobile applications and web applications is about 1 week. Okay, so you saw a little bit. You see the breadcrumb trails and the visual process details. So what you need to keep in mind is that this is data, application level monitoring data that is automatically tracked. Everything that happens in a modern application platform application gets tracked, whether the developer remembers to put in that tracking or not. It's all automatic. So that allows the ability to have monitoring dashboards like this one, this business level, application level activity monitoring that shows you the performance of all your business workflows. Okay, and as you can see the top activities, history, team load. If we go, I won't go through all the options, but if you go to the actual processes, an administrator can go in and see the status of any business process, where it is, and drill down in the hierarchy. Okay, now a lot of folks in this audience, I'm sure, have been in IT a long time, and many still prefer to go at the log level, and all of that is available. And you can see how the platform consolidates all the logs for all the applications and distills them. You can see the general log that has everything, but of course also the error logs, timers, emails, environment, health, security. So Now we're getting a little bit closer to the infrastructure level so that you can monitor, secure, and evaluate all levels of your application factory. Okay, you can look at the security is a big topic for this team, as we showed. This you can always look at the security log to see if there are any security exceptions, environment, health, and the like. Okay, and then for those that prefer a more visual interface, we have the lifetime monitoring interface. Again, this takes a different approach than traditional monitoring tools, which you can still use for your applications, because this has a cohesive view of the entire application factory. Okay, so this is looking at all the different applications, including the one we saw, and it shows the response time distribution. So you see most of the pages are loading in less than 10 seconds. If any pages have a problem, they will show up here in the long tail of the response time distribution. It shows industry standard application performance index over time, so you can see periods of the day, week, month that you may have performance degradation. There's a level of instrumentation in these applications that lets you do things that normally would be very difficult with traditional technologies. For example, you can see the response time breakdown, how much of the time for the user's page load response time is due to the client load, the network latency, and server processing. And that's broken down, and you can get more details at any of these levels in terms of the operating systems, iOS, Android, or Windows, that is providing data, the network performance for different networks that are accessing your data, and the breakdown of server response time. You can drill down on a specific application to see if you have any problem areas, and you can get down to the page level, and even, so if you look at the dashboard, even the function level within the page, if you want to drill down. And here are a couple of page loads that took over 12 seconds. So you would go to the preparation visual graph of the dashboard to troubleshoot that for the incidences that took a long time. So it really lets you have a cohesive view of your entire application factory to get to any problem areas very quickly. So that's a little bit of the taste, but again, there's no limit to what type of monitoring you can perform in the platform, because you can connect all your existing monitoring systems to have access and extend your monitoring activities whichever way you like. So David, that is what I had prepared. I'll pause here and go to the Q&A tab to see if there are any questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Great presentation. As Daniel said out there in the audience, he said, I love demos. I love demos too. So thank you for taking time to do that. While we take some questions, I'm just going to bring up this poll for everyone in the audience that says, what additional information would you like about the Outsystems solution? So yes, so we've got quite a few questions for you here. The first one that caught my eye, they're talking about, what are the typical use cases or industries where Outsystems has shown to generate a significant ROI for the organization? Where's this been most popular?
Sure. The idea of Outsystems and modern application platforms is that you can build fit-for-purpose applications. So industries that have complex requirements and need custom logic that are hard for a commercial off-the-shelf solution really are a good match for the platform. So we see insurance, finance, including banking, healthcare, when there are a lot of compliance requirements, such as HIPAA regulations here in the United States, it is hard for commercial off-the-shelf products to address the needs of every company and how they want to work. So that's where we see a lot of adoption, right? Areas like a shopping cart, an e-commerce shopping cart. Well, that's pretty common, and there are a lot of commercial off-the-shelf products that are well suited for that. So when we are in that type of industry, Outsystems ends up being a little bit of an integration system that will connect your CRM to your inventory and HR ops software to be the glue in between, so you're not having to use traditional technologies.
Excellent. Yeah, very nice. Another question here: what IT skills are required for a person to start working with Outsystems and develop some applications?
Sure. One of the links that we made available, and it's available in the last page of the handout, is our free trial, and that has links to all the training for Outsystems. It's all available for free and online. Now, to answer the question, you do not need a computer science background. So really, the biggest determinant of success that I see is having the time to go through a training. If you can dedicate a week to go through training, you'll be able to have the ability to build web and mobile applications that you may have never been able to build before. Now, at a larger company, when I see Outsystems succeeding, it usually involves analysts that had never built apps before. Maybe they were involved a little bit in Excel spreadsheets and some technical activities, but not in application building. So they are definitely part of the team. But then those in IT that have a computer science background, they end up having superpowers with the platform, right? Because they understand what's going on under the covers. So they will know that they generally won't get thousands of records from a data source and show it on a page. They'll know that they should use the pagination widget. So those things take a little bit longer for those that are new to development. So there's really something for everyone, and when I see it succeeding in a larger company, it's usually a mix of techniques. But I encourage you, even if you have never built an application before, try our free trial and go through the training, and you'll get a good sense of what you'll be able to do. And over time, you develop those additional skills. In 3 to 4 months, you can be pretty much building anything you'd like with the platform.
Excellent. All right. Sounds easy to get started. I love the idea of free trial and just trying it out for yourself. I do want to point out that Phil has generously made his slide deck there available for download in your audience console in the handouts tab. And like you said, there's a number of links there on the last page, a link to the free trials, a link to the Outsystems monitoring and analytics for more information on that as well. Phil, I'm afraid that's all the time we have in our live Q&A, but there's a number of more technical questions for you there in the queue. Thank you so much for being on the EcoCast today.
Thank you, David, and thank you, everybody. I enjoyed presenting this and look forward to hearing the feedback.
Excellent, and thank you to Outsystems, of course, for supporting the event. Check out the free trial, as Phil mentioned, and it can be really easy to get started with. You don't have to be a developer, as he said, and you can be creating your own applications and solving your company's IT problems with some new applications. I know that can be really, really powerful. So thank you so much. And with that, let's go ahead and announce our first Amazon $500 gift card winner. That's going out to David Pena from New Hampshire. Congratulations. Still 2 more gift cards to give out on the event today. If you haven't answered the poll question, now is the time to do it. All right, and with that, I'm excited now to introduce you to our next presenter. Welcome, Mohammed Durrani, Technical Marketing Engineer at Gigamon. Mohammed, are you there?
Oh, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you for being on. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you guys are. My name is Mohammed Durrani, Technical Marketing Engineer with Gigamon. Thank you for inviting me for discussing a very interesting topic today, which is tool time, assessing and selecting your next infrastructure tools, application monitoring tools. So we're going to talk about this tool selection in this session. But before that, network upgrades bound to happen because of the positive outcome they have for IT organizations, performance upgrades, security upgrades, reliability upgrades, and all that. But the question that an IT organization may ask, with the network upgrades, what's going to happen with my existing tool set? Of course, we're going to go out and look for newer tools. But what about the existing investment we have in the tools that we already have? Will they be relevant with the network upgrades, with the feeds and speeds that come on along with the network upgrades? Will we have will we be able to keep the existing tool set, or do we need to throw them away? The answer is yes and a no. Okay, so yes is when you're not using Gigamon, and a no is when you are using Gigamon. So in this session, we'll talk about how you can use different traffic techniques with Gigamont's visibility fabric to keep your tools relevant, the existing tools relevant, even with the network upgrades, while you search and buy new tools so that both tool sets coexist. So this is going to be the goal of this session. I will try my best to make it, put the point across to you guys that with the network upgrades, you can still keep your existing tools. Even there will be challenges that are going to come along the way, and we'll first look into the challenges. With the network upgrades, the challenges are they are listed here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can see easily that when the networks are upgraded, even in today's existing networks, there is complexity involved. The networks have moved from the traditional on-prem data centers to public clouds, virtual data centers, and containers. The workloads are running in different environments. They're talking to each other. The applications have moved from the monolithic architecture to multi-tiered architecture. By the way, in an AWS reInvent 2 years ago, some developers came to our booth and they said, we are worried, we do not know. We have about 200 applications we have developed. They're running in our VPCs. We do not know the API calls they're basically making to other application endpoints. So can you please help us there identifying those applications? So complexity is there. Capacity and performance, of course, it's a given. When the networks are upgraded, there's going to be more speed, more bandwidth, performance, more encrypted traffic and all that that's going to come along. So that means more traffic and data and the logs will be generated and will be thrown at the tools, existing tools, as well as the tools that you're going to buy in future. Compatibility. 100 gig network pipe now being placed. The tool may not have a native 100 gig tool port. So which means now, what are you going to do with that tool? Throw it away? Or buy a tool that has a 100 gig pipe. Now, the 100 gig, the cost between 10 gig and 100 gig, of course, there's going to be a big differential there. Similarly, decryption is needed. Many tools need to decrypt traffic in order to find any threats that are lurking inside. Many tools find it challenging in decrypting all TLS versions, all ciphers that are there, different TLS techniques, the algorithms, as well as some tools may not have the SSL decryption stack, and they may rely on external TLS decryption solution. Similarly, if the performance is going up for the network and there are security concerns, performance concerns, you may have to end up buying more copies of the tool. Of course, the cost is going to go up. Blind spots. When your application workloads are moving from on-prem data centers, the lines are getting blurred now for IT. They're moving into cloud, containers, and all that. They are bound to have blind spots happen. And during network upgrades, even there will be downtimes where these tools need to always have a pervasive visibility. So all these challenges you can see in this chaotic slide. This is what we do, our networking these days, and the tools are connected directly onto the network, on the infrastructure. And the challenges that I just talked in the previous slide, you can easily visualize those challenges are here in this slide. The tools are connected onto the network. They need to acquire traffic from this complex infrastructure, which has gone beyond the physical boundaries, gone into virtual cloud. There are diverse applications, devices, different types of operational technology that's coexisting. These tools need to see the traffic, and they might be having performance issues, security issues in grabbing this traffic. There can be various reasons, which I mentioned. The complexity, the tool may not have access to traffic in cloud. How does it get the traffic from there? That means there's a blind spot there. A decryption issue. Some tools need to decrypt. Some may not have decryption solution altogether. Every tool has to decrypt, introducing latency, and we'll talk about this in the next slide. So this is kind of chaotic slide. In the infrastructure, if you have a 100 gig pipe, the tool may not have a support for 100 gig pipe, then you cannot directly plug that tool into that network, upgraded network infrastructure. You need to throw that tool away or have the vendor give you a 100 gig pipe, right? So all these challenges that I mentioned in the previous slide can easily be seen here. So there is a better way of doing things. Gigamont's visibility fabric separates the infrastructure layer from the tool layer, so you can see easily without me telling you some of the challenges that I described are already taken care of here. If the infrastructure is a 100 gig pipe, the port compatibility for the tool doesn't matter because the tool is directly connected onto the Gigamon visibility and analytics fabric, not onto the infrastructure. The Gigamon's VAF is providing that 10 gig pipe that the tool can support, not the 100 gig, but the Gigamon is taking care of that 100 gig pipe for you, right? If the tool can do decryption, well and good. But if you think about it, if all these tools that are listed here on the right side in the tool structure, if every tool has to decrypt once and then encrypt, pass it on, it's going to introduce latency, tool resources. What if you do that on Gigamon, decrypt once, share with many? And then once the last tool has seen it, you grab the decrypted clear text traffic, encrypt it, pass it on to its final destination. So those challenges, if there's network upgrades that are happening, the Gigamon's inline bypass can take care of that. It'll basically bypass that part of the network, which is being upgraded, so there is no downtime for the production traffic. Even on the tool side, if the tool is having challenges, you can bypass that tool, move it on to the next tool that is healthy, right? And then there's no blind spots. We are able to go and grab traffic from physical virtual cloud, even containers, so that the tools do not have to worry about, hey, how I'm going to get the traffic from the containers? Do I build agents for that? How I'm going to do that? All those kind of things. Tools are ready. Let me tell you this. I've come across many tool vendors. When they hear that the customer already has a Gigamon visibility fabric in place, their life becomes so easy. They have said it to me many times. All right, so what the visibility fabric does, it has 4 layers so the building blocks are around 4 layers. Access, of course, you need to get traffic. In the ad hoc slides, where there was no visibility fabric, you were taking the tools to the traffic. In this case, you are bringing traffic to the tools. You are accessing through the visibility and analytics fabric of Gigamon. You're going into physical, virtual, and cloud environments, grabbing the traffic, aggregating it on a single appliance, and then transforming. And these are the techniques that I was talking about. The question was, hey, my network has been upgraded. What do I do with my existing tool set? That's not going to be able to handle this kind of performance. What do I do with that tool set? So in the next slides, we'll look at some transformation techniques which will make life easy for these tools. They do not have to worry about all that noise that's going to happen, because when you access traffic, a lot of it will be noise for the tools. And here, Gigamon is going to separate the noise, only provide signal to the tools. And of course, analysis for security and all that. We're going to do that. Now let's look at methods to extend shelf life of existing tools. As I said, big question is, you have investment for your existing tools. Should you waste that with the network upgrades? No. Use these techniques that Gigamon provides: traffic selection, conversion, and traffic removal. You're going to say, what do you mean by that? Let's look at that. Traffic selection. You want to send only traffic that the tool needs. For example, quickly I'm going to go over that. It's self-explanatory. If a voice over IP security tool wants to see traffic, it only needs to see SIP traffic or the traffic that is relevant for VoIP. So we can basically, I don't know why it's getting forward. So this is basically traffic selection, which means you only send traffic of interest to the tools using 5-tuple information: source port, destination ports, source IP, destination IP, application. And also with application intelligence, you can basically select the applications at layer 7. Once you identify the applications at layer 7, which we can do up to 3,000 plus applications, you basically then only send relevant application traffic to the tools. For example, email traffic for the email scanner. Malware tool does not need to see high volume, low risk traffic. We're going to take a look at that, and that is through application extraction. And then we can also, instead of sending raw traffic, we can export 5,000 plus metadata attributes around these applications. And we'll take a look and see how that works. So traffic of interest, very simple. There is a data loss prevention tool. It only needs to see traffic like box traffic, Dropbox, any application and protocol that is associated with any file transfers, any image transfers, any confidential information transfers. So you only select that with a few mouse clicks and send only that relevant traffic to that tool. As I said, email traffic to the email scanner. So by doing this, you are only sending the relevant traffic. Existing tools, though, are looking at 100 gig pipe, but out of that, only traffic of interest may be 10 gig, and they're able to easily process that traffic. Filter high volume, low risk traffic. A malware vendor tool came to us and said, my malware tool does not need to see streaming media. It rarely contains malware. Please do not send streaming media to me. If you can do that, it's going to make my tool's life easier. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to cope with the traffic that is on a 100 gig network. I only have like up to 25 gig network ports. How do I be able to handle a traffic volume of 100 gig? So what we did, we stopped sending Netflix streaming media traffic through application intelligence to that malware tool, and they were happy campers. Similarly, I mean, this is something that just came last year when everybody moved into remote homes, into remote offices in their homes. So most of us are going through SaaS applications which should not be hitting the VPN console. If you are logged in as a VPN through VPN, then the VPN split tunnel is going to take care of this traffic. It's not going to hit your on-prem tools. It's going to go directly into the SaaS provider applications. But if you see that tools are still getting the traffic like Zoom, video conferencing apps and all that, you can easily drop that through application intelligence so that the tools do not need to see. Your security solutions are placed somewhere else for these kind of applications. So Netflow and application metadata, again, another smart way of dealing with a huge volume of traffic. Instead of sending raw traffic to tools which can consume Netflow and metadata, application metadata. We can, as a Gigamont's visibility and analytics fabric, we can generate metadata for 5,000 plus metadata attributes. For example, if you want to look at the information around your TLS certificates, we can generate it only needs 4 metadata attributes from the TLS traffic to support this use case, and you're going to get all the information around your TLS certificates, including who was the signing authority, which server is using this expired TLS certificate, when was it expired, and so that you can go and take care of it. Traffic conversion. Again, offload SSL decryption. I think I talked to you about this in the previous slide, one of the slides. Instead of having the tools to do their decryption individually, the decryption can happen on Gigamont's visibility node, decrypt once, share with many tools like this firewall here, diagnostic tool, VoIP security tool, IDS, and all that. Once everybody has seen that clear text traffic, the visibility node is going to basically encrypt and pass it on to the next destination. In this case, the tools are happy because they do not have to decrypt. They can use those CPU resources for inspection of the traffic. And some of the tools even are able to do decryption. Even those tools are happy because they are automatically getting clear text traffic. And we have seen in testing, benchmark testing, the decryption can go up to consume up to 70% CPU utilization of these tools. Traffic and content removal. So when you are tapping traffic from different parts of the network, especially when you have span ports, there's bound to be duplicate traffic that's going to happen. And duplicate traffic is noise for these tools. The tools may have deduplication functions. They are again CPU intensive. Offload that to Gigamont's visibility node. We're going to take care of that, only provide the real traffic or the original traffic without any duplicate copies to these tools. Again, the existing shelf life of the tool is going to get extended because they're not going to be processing the duplicate traffic, which is noise to them. Packet and flow slicing. Some tools, for example, application performance management tools, may not need to look at the payloads. They only need to look at the headers. You can chop the payload at any part that you want, or even if some tool needs to see some packets in the flows, you can do advanced flow slicing, where you can say, for every flow, please send up to 50 packets, and then drop or slice afterwards. So the tool's job is done through that. You can reduce the traffic by 90% in this case, sent to the tools. Now there's another challenge. When a complexity, the blind spot, that brings the blind spot for these tools. Hey, I'm going to grab traffic because my IT organization has gone into public cloud containers and all that. What about my existing tools? How do we get traffic from these tools? But the answer is, you may get newer tools. Some of those tools may have challenges. We have worked with some tools who do not have agent-based solutions for these public providers, public cloud providers like AWS, Azure. Then what about those tools? How are those tools going to get traffic from the AWS EC2 instances or Kubernetes containers, Azure instances, and all that? That becomes a challenge, a blind spot, and without seeing traffic, there's no security, there's no performance measurement, right? And even if you develop agents for these tools and deploy those agents on these workloads, those agents are going to take resources on these workloads, going to hamper their performance and security issues, bring security issues for these workloads. Because now you're looking at like at least an average, a customer has about 10 to 15 different types of tools. Are you going to deploy one agent for each tool on each workload? That's like 10 to 15 agents grabbing traffic and sharing the bandwidth of that copied traffic from those workloads. So performance issue is going to be there. What if we tell you that we have that solution? We can go in and provide you the traffic from these mission-critical workloads, whether they are running in Kubernetes, in AWS, in GCP, in Azure, anywhere. it's going to minimize the agent overload because you're only going to have either one agent of Gigamon running on that load and sharing it with many tools instead of 15 agents running on these EC2 instances or workloads. Or we can also work hand in hand with any native monitoring services that are provided by the cloud provider. For example, AWS VPC traffic mirroring service. We can grab traffic from them, and everything is orchestrated. You do not have to manually configure, hey, here's my source of EC2 instance. Please send the traffic manually to this tool, and now I'm going to create another tunnel from that EC2 instance to the second tool, third tool. No. We automatically do that in the background. All you have to do is with a single drag and drop a visual style canvas. Once you go for a demo, it's so easy. You just have to have a mouse or your mouse, and then you just click from your source and destination, and the traffic is going to start flowing. When the new EC2 instances come up, we basically automatically detect them and then start grabbing traffic from them based on the traffic mirroring policies. So there's no blind spots. I already talked about this. This is a capping slide, which we're basically saying that the challenges that we saw in first few slides, the complexity, the compatibility issues, removing noise from the signal, making sure that tools are not getting overwhelmed even when the networks are upgraded, increasing the tool efficiency, no blind spots. All this is there. This is for you to basically have a look and see where your challenges lie and how we can basically fit into solving those challenges. So in closing, we looked at some of the challenges, and there could be other challenges as well. And we are basically, knowledge is always shared. It's a two-way street. So we'll basically encourage you to give us your take on what challenges you have faced or you think you're going to face when the networks are upgraded, so that we can basically prepare for those challenges as well. So with this, I think we are at the end of the presentation, and we're going to take the Q&A.
Absolutely, yeah. Great presentation, Mohammed. Really appreciate that. Let's go ahead and take some questions now from the audience. And while we do so, I'll just bring up this poll for everyone out there. What additional information would you like about the Gigamon solution? Of course, we appreciate everyone's feedback and, more details on exactly what you'd like to do next. If you'd like to get a personal demo or learn more about some customers who have been using the solution, give us your feedback here. So first question that came in, Nikita's asking, does Gigamon support TLS 1.3?
Yes. That is what the point I was mentioning, that yes, the tools may have TLS decryption solution, but they may not be able to decrypt everything. So okay. we make sure that since we are the brokers, we're going to be up to the mark. We can do decrypt up to TLS 1.3, so nobody stays behind. No tool left behind.
Excellent. And then there's a question here about, can this monitor, for example, on premises and in the cloud at the same time?
Oh, yes. And with a single pane of glass, you can grab traffic from anywhere and send it to anywhere. We don't care. But of course, strategically, from the IT administration point of view and the budgeting and everything, you think that you're going to basically, you have on-prem tools, but if you are grabbing traffic from the public cloud and bringing them on-prem, we can do that easily. No problem for us technically, right? But from the budgeting point of view, you may say that, hey, if the traffic leaves the public cloud provider is going to charge me for that. So in that case, you want to host your tools, some of the copies of your tools within the public cloud, so you do not have to pay for that traffic that's leaving, and we can send the traffic there. You just tell us where you want to grab it from, where do you want to send it to, we'll do that for you.
Excellent. And then what about monitoring virtual network traffic like in a VMware environment?
Oh, yes. So as I said, public cloud, private cloud, please go on www.gigamon.com. All these solutions are there. And if you require anything else on these solutions, please request a demo. Reach out to our business development reps. They will give you the first information. Yes, we grab traffic from all private and public cloud environments, as well as the on-prem data centers and containers.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have in our live Q&A here, but there's some more technical questions for you in the queue. Mohammed, thank you so much for your presentation today.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me, guys.
Absolutely. And thank you to Gigamon for supporting the event. Check out the handouts tab there, and you can download a really nice resource all about the Gigamon solution for additional information. Talks about how it increases productivity, how it can reduce traffic to tools, extend the life of tools, and reduce your overall spend. So a great resource. And thank you, of course, for the excellent questions that are continuing to come in. We always appreciate those. I'll just leave the poll question up here for a moment, let everyone else respond to that. All right, and with that, it's now time for our next presentation on today's EcoCast, welcoming Mark Towler, Senior Product Marketing Manager, and Mark Singh, Senior Solutions Engineer, both at Progress. Mark?
Hello.
Great to have you.
Hello. Always a pleasure. Thanks very much for having us.
Absolutely, yeah. Take it away.
Excellent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little walkthrough of how you can easily monitor business critical applications with WhatsUp Gold. But this is not just going to be a pure product demo. I'm also going to explain to you why you'd want to bother in the first place. Our agenda is pretty straightforward. We need to understand what we're monitoring, why applications are more important than ever, why they're critical, and why you do need to be able to monitor them. We're going to look at what you need to monitor in order to monitor those applications effectively, and what areas of your network you need to look at. We're going to look at alerting. We're going to talk a very little bit about how you can do all of this with WhatsUp Gold, and then my colleague Mark Singh is going to walk you through a demo showing exactly how that's done. And then we'll do a brief Q&A. So I'll try and make this as painless as possible. So this isn't going to be news to anyone on this call, I don't think, but applications are essential and you need to monitor their performance. It's one thing to think, to say that, but you've really got to think about all the different applications that are involved in your organization and in your organization's business. At the end of the day, applications are what your network exists to provide, all right? You hear a lot of talk about, oh, network outages cost X, or if the network's down, we've got all these other problems. The network is down, or the application is down, your organization is not making money, or it's losing money. And depending on the size of the organization and the application, network outages can, and application outages can cost anywhere from thousands of dollars a minute to millions of dollars a minute. It is incredibly important that you monitor not just the underlying network, but the application as well. In a lot of cases, for a lot of organizations, these applications are business critical. For example, we have customers who are hospitals, and the way they make money is by submitting insurance claims through, purpose-built, dedicated applications. If those insurance claims aren't submitted, they don't get paid, and the hospital is not making money. If that system goes down, that is a major problem. And that's not even as mission critical as anyone with an e-commerce site. If you are selling through an e-commerce site and that site and that e-commerce backend stops or slows down or starts malfunctioning, you are not just not making money because you're still paying for the business, you're losing money. And that's customer-facing stuff. That's where the end user is being directly impacted, and that's your worst-case scenario. But the other thing to bear in mind is that your network is serving applications to your internal workers as well. Your employees are using applications, and okay, fine, the e-commerce site didn't go down. We're still sending those insurance claims out. Whatever process we're doing is working, but the email system isn't working. In fact, just recently, and I'm not sure how much of an outage it was for anyone else, we had an issue yesterday at Progress where Teams stopped working for an hour or two. Just people couldn't connect. And that has a massive impact on your business. If your employees can't send email, if they can't use internal messaging apps, if things aren't getting through, if backups aren't happening, there's a million different applications your employees touch on all the time. And while it may not be impacting your end users or your customers immediately, it's causing you productivity issues for your employees. So again, that's another thing you need to figure out and need to monitor to make sure that you're not causing issues. Now, one thing I didn't mention too is slowdowns obviously have an impact, failures obviously have an impact, but even things that go slightly wrong but are recovered from may cause you to miss service level agreements or SLAs. In the example I gave earlier of a customer who's submitting insurance claims, if those are not submitted and worked through an existing process within a certain amount of time, they can be denied, or they can have to go into a separate process that takes longer or returns less money, or simply there may be massive fees and fines. And this isn't necessarily application specific, but a long time ago I was working for an organization that serviced the automotive industry, and the costs for failing to provide material in a just-in-time manner were astronomical, because if you suddenly ran out of car doors, then they would fine you millions of dollars per minute because the entire assembly line shuts down. That's a physical example of that. A digital workflow works the same way. It's very, very possible that you can have a business that exists purely to get things from point A to point B, or to process them in a particular way within a particular set of time constraints. And failure to do so can result in massive charges due to missed SLAs. So that's another reason why you really need to pay attention to those. And as I mentioned, every single slowdown is impacting the bottom line, whether it's internal or external. The upshot of all of this is you can monitor your network, and that's great, but you've got to monitor the applications. If you aren't monitoring the applications, your business is at risk. And usually it only takes one massive failure before that becomes an issue that people are paying attention to. So what are the factors that can impact application performance? There's a ton of them here. And when hardware portion sort of is on the left, and I want to be careful how I say that, because we're looking at basically a server, but that could also be a physical or a virtual server or a cloud-based device. And in either way, there's going to be some device somewhere that your application lives on. There may be multiples, but at some point your application has to live somewhere. There's going to be some server that's doing the processing, that's moving the data, that's enabling that application. And that means that there's a processor, the CPU, and there's a bunch of different reasons where that CPU could be having problems that can impact application performance. Not enough power, too much power, inadequate cooling, too many applications being run at once, overload. Same thing goes for onboard memory, your RAM. If it's not working properly, if it's getting overloaded, if it's got leaks, malware can hit at any point along this point. And then the disk. The information has to live somewhere, whether it's a solid state or a traditional disk drive. You're still looking at a potential for lag and read-write latency. As disks get full, they slow down. Everyone's familiar with that from their laptops or their personal computers. Servers have the same issue too, even multi-set RAID arrays and massive commercial level storage systems. If you are seeing 80 or 90% disk capacity, you're going to be expecting a certain amount of lag. And again, whether they're physical or physical or solid state, you're going to see a certain amount of wear and tear on the parts. And you need to know, is that disk drive working at the same performance it was when we bought it or implemented it? Is it slowing down? Is it starting to drop issues? Does it need to be defragged more often? Or is it just getting overloaded because we've got a lot more applications using it? That's the hardware side of things, and any one of these aspects can have an impact on your application, anywhere from slowing it down, increasing lag, to causing glitches, to complete and total utter failure. And again, it doesn't seem like a big thing, but again, for large organizations that are, say, again, running an e-commerce site, they're paying a very, very close attention to things like, okay, how long between the moment someone clicks on their buy now, button in their shopping cart to to the point where they get to pay and get to the shipping information screen. If that takes more than a certain amount of time, or if that time creeps up, it has a very measurable impact on cart abandonment, on sales, on whether or not people come back. It has an impact on customer satisfaction. So if it's a matter of, I'm going to buy 15 things impulse buy, click the buy now, and then wait, 10 seconds while the next screen loads, I may think better of it and just close that tab and move on somewhere else. So maintaining a high performance level and low latency is absolutely critical. This is also something that can be impacted by the network itself. Again, the device where your application lives is only one aspect of what's going on here. The rest of the network is where that application has to reach out to, either where the endpoints, where the end users are interfacing with it, or to where the administrators are able to control it. And this is where there are a myriad of different devices or systems or cabling or what have you that they have to reach across. And again, that could be physical, virtual, or in the cloud. But at some point, if you've got a traffic bottleneck, if you've got a router that is starting to get wonky, if you've got a server or a switch that is out or that is experiencing overload or is just too darn hot, any of this stuff can impact how your application is delivered. So this is a very depressing picture. I know I'm painting, but there are a million things that can impact your application, and you need to monitor all of them. And the problem here is any one of these items on their own can be a problem, it can cause an alert, but may not necessarily impact the application. You don't need to just monitor these pieces, you need to monitor the application that's touching every single one of them. So application monitoring should be able to answer a number of questions for you. If you're monitoring a particular application, it's going to let you know these things. First of all, most importantly, is the application working? Seems simple, but if it's not, you've got a major problem and you need to know immediately. Is the application slower than it should be? And that's a bit more complicated to ask. That's where you need some sort of trend analysis. You need to understand exactly how fast it was working before, whether it slowed down, whether it slows down every day this time, because that's when everyone gets on board and shops, or that's when most of the insurance claims are going through, or whatever. Or is this an anomaly? Also important, are we meeting the SLAs? And there's going to be a range there. If you've got a nice buffer, then that's fine. If you're getting very close to the point where you're going to start not meeting SLAs, that's an issue for concern. And you want to know that before you start missing those SLAs. And a lot of this means you need to be able to look at the history of the application status. Has that application been having problems? Has that application been going down or slowing down at certain times? Remember, I just mentioned there's a trend analysis. Does it get slow every day at this time? This is where you need to be able to take a look at that, not just a snapshot in time, but a look at the history of how that application has performed. And then if you've made changes or you've fixed problems with the application, you want to have that information too. What have I fixed in the past? What's the log? What are the issues that have cropped up in the past that will help me diagnose the problem? And then you've got the whole issue of what are the underlying problems that are causing this? Because knowing that the application is not working properly is step one. Knowing exactly what the problem is that's impacting them. And that's where we get into what we were just looking at on the slide previous. Is it a CPU issue, a memory issue, a disk utilization issue, or something else out there that's causing the problem? Knowing that there's something wrong with the application is step one. Diagnosing that problem and figuring out exactly where the issue is and then what to do about it is the next challenge. And speaking of which, what is it that you can do about it? First of all, the most important thing to do is if there's an application problem, you need to get an alert on it. The most important issue is going to be if you have an application failure. And this seems obvious. All the applications stop working, of course we're going to know. Not necessarily. And the worst case scenario, it's one of your users, your end users or your customers who lets you know. And this is literally a system administrator's worst nightmare. Someone calls them up and says, we haven't been selling anything for the last hour because the e-commerce application just failed. That's, they would rather die than have to deal with that. What they want to know is immediately if it fails, they need to be able to know about it and what to do and what they can do about it. Again, worst nightmare is, someone leading a group of angry users with pitchforks and torches banging on their cubicle wall screaming, the email's been down for 2 hours, why haven't you done something about it yet? And they're like, it has. So that's a big issue right there. And letting that one systems administrator know is not adequate. When you have a complete and total application failure, it's an all-hands-on-deck situation. And I keep using e-commerce as an example, but this could be internal email or even a print application or something fairly basic like that. If your alert is an email being sent to the systems administrator and he's out for the day, or he's in a meeting and he's not checking his email, you're looking at a significant delay before anyone is going to be aware of this and do something about it. You need to have an entire team of people who can do something about it, who can be alerted. And this means, text messages, alerting multiple people. If you are using Slack, that's a great way to let the entire IT team know something, because if someone's going, all right, this is Jim's responsibility, but Jim's out sick today, Bob has to take care of it. At least you've got someone who's aware and can do something about it. But that's worst case scenario. If everything's running more or less smoothly, but there's the potential that it won't in the near future, this is what your systems administrators really want to know about it. You want to get an alert if something's slowing down or showing too much latency or starting to impact users. Are you hitting 80 or 90% of disk space? And this is where trends and history can come into play. If you know that your disks start to show significant latency at 80% or 90% or say 87%, you can customize that and say, let me know at 85%, so I can either clear out some space or allocate in another disk or something else. Same thing goes with bandwidth. Okay, if we're literally hitting 90% peak bandwidth or 85 or whatever number you choose, you want to get an alert about that, because even if it's not slowing down the application yet, it's going to start to, and you want to be able to deal with that before it happens. So not just alerting on failures, but on trends or on preset thresholds that could become failures. And once you've got that information alerted to you, your next step is you've got to diagnose the issue. And that's where you need a tool that will let you look at everything we were just talking about, all those different pieces of the network, and figure out what is the issue and where the problem is. And this is where things like application logs can come in very handy, and where things like end user monitoring even can give you some awareness of what's going on and tell you about latency. You don't really want a full-scale network monitoring diagnostic tool that can cover your applications, but will also allow you to do a deeper dive and look deeply into certain parts of the network. Ideally, you want to be able to see the entire network at a glance, so you can see trouble spots and see exactly where in the network it's happening, but then be able to zoom right in on a particular application or device or a virtual machine and get a closer look at exactly where the issue is. Now, that's great if you need to actually manually fix the problem. Ideally, the problem will fix itself, and that doesn't mean you ignore it. It means you can set up self-healing actions. Depending on what the issue is, and this is again where the trending and the historical results come in. If every once in a while, after 1,000 hours of uptime, the application is just going to crash, all right, fine. First of all, you can have it automatically reset, or when it hits a certain threshold of, okay, we're at 975 hours, somewhere in the middle of the night when it's getting very low usage, you can say, okay, shut it down and restart it. Or if it trips an alert saying, all right, we're getting to a certain level of latency, you can shut it down and restart it, or whatever the issue is. That's the simplest one. And that's what's called a self-healing action. And that can apply to the application or any other parts of the network. You've got a server that after a certain amount of time, it's, starts dropping packets or it starts, throwing glitches. Again, shut down and reboot. We have one customer who had an entirely mechanized or robotized assembly line, and they had a situation where one of the robot pickers on the line would, the server that was running it would sometimes just stop working, and the application and that server would stop and that robot would stop, and no one would notice until the robot downstream on the assembly line reached for a part and then it wasn't there. This was the sort of thing that resulted in, 3 a.m. phone calls to the systems administrator who had to get up and figure out the problem, and the assembly line's been down, and they have to redo inventory. Or they were able to fix this by saying, okay, server goes down, reboot it, start the whole thing up again. and that's a few lines of code. It's an automatic action. Most alerts can also trigger a PowerShell script or something similar, so it's not just send an email or send a text. It can automatically trigger more detailed actions, and then 3 in the morning the robot goes down, it's back up again within 2 minutes. No one ever noticed, no issue. The downstream robot's still picking out the parts. It all works, and the only person who knows about it is the systems administrator, who sees the next morning, it's logged, okay, that's where that application or that server failed. It's the same sort of situation. Again, this is, you're seeing the trending and the historical analysis come in. The history of how that application has been working is going to tell you how it's likely to fail. So that's where you start figuring out your thresholds, figuring out those self-healing actions. And that's what you can do to resolve application failures and application issues. And of course, we have a very good suggestion about what we think you should use to do this kind of application performance monitoring. Our product's What's Up Gold. It's an overall network and application and a lot of other things monitoring tool that's very simple to use. It'll allow you to monitor the entire stack supporting an application. You can see your entire network at a glance, and we even show application issues right there on the application server. There's a little icon that appears beside the device badge. It's got a lot of built-in profiles for most commonly used applications, and if you don't like any of those or you've got something you need to customize, it is tremendously easy to build your own profile. And the whole point of it is, while you're monitoring your network, you can also monitor your applications, as we've covered. And with that said, I'm actually going to hand things over to Mark Singh, who's going to walk you through a demonstration of exactly how we do that with What's Up Gold. Take it away, Mark.
Thank you. So we're going to share the the application profile monitoring module in this section of the webinar. What you're looking at here is the What's Up Gold web interface, as many of you are familiar with it, where you'll access anything related to application monitoring. Is going to be under the Settings tab. And there, under the What's Up Gold add-on section, you'll find application monitoring. So under the application and profile monitoring, you'll see 2 tabs: monitored applications and application profiles. Monitored applications is what you're monitoring. These are the applications that you've configured for What's Up Gold to monitor, but the profiles are found under this tab. What's Up Gold comes with a number of different types of application profiles already pre-built. And so we could take a look at some of them to see what all they include. We'll go to something that's common, like a SQL Server application profile. Now, when you open an application profile, you will notice 2 tabs again, one being the application detail, a little bit of information about which application you're monitoring, type, etc., and whether there's a policy, an action policy assigned to that profile. The Components tab shows you what all is being monitored as an application profile, and these consist of what's called components. So it could be anything ranging from a port to services that are running, and then some specific metrics that we're collecting, in this case for SQL Server, and in this case it's SQL Server 2019. So all of these checks that you're seeing here are already configured to be polled anytime this APM monitor queries that application. So the idea here is that it combines the results of all these applications, and then it will show you taking all these application monitors together. It will give you more of a comprehensive view of how the application is performing. So that is one example. As you can see here, there are quite a bit. There are Oracle, there's Linux, there's VMware, etc. So you have different types of application profiles that are out there, that are in the library, but you could also import them from our online community. You also have the ability to create your own application profile. So you'll just give it a name and determine what type of application type it is. Now, what you choose here might not directly impact what type of application profile it is. It's just more of a a descriptor for you as you're watching it, for you to kind of know exactly what type of monitor you're defining here. So there are quite a bit of options there available that you could choose from. And then under the attributes, you could select specific attributes already pre-configured for you, or you could create a new attribute. Under the components is where you'll select a component, just like you would with the active monitors list above in the what's called core product. You could choose from this list what type of monitoring you want to do in this application profile. Most likely, the device that you're monitoring is already going to be polled for CPU utilization, disk utilization, memory utilization. But you could add it here as well, where you can choose CPU utilization and then choose a threshold or a down value, etc. But beyond that, you'll see other components options like database queries. So these are going directly into the database to run a query, and then based upon the result, it will determine whether it's down, whether it's up, whether it's in a warning state. The end user script or end user monitor script allows you to script a specific web transaction and monitor those. This is using something called an iDrone. Now, for this example, I'm going to jump over here to this view. In fact, let me see. I'll come back to that. Let me come back here. The end user script monitor basically uses a script to show how different types of transactions and navigation, so forth, works in a web interface. And so with that web interface, you'll be able to see how long it takes, for example, for a page to load. How long does it take for you to navigate certain pages? This view will give us just that. And when I get an example, I'm going to show you how that'll work here. But beyond that, you have, as you can see here, various types of components that you could define. And then once those components are defined, you'll be able to see them work. Now, let me pause what I'm showing here, and I will show you a new application. Just to give you an example of this to show you how it'll work. So let me see here. Let's show this application behind me. Cancel that, and we'll go here. Show application, what's up gold? Okay. So here in this view, as a part of application performance monitoring, I want you to focus here on this particular view down below. That end user script monitor that I was showing you is basically what this is down here at bottom. What's up gold is what do you call an agentless monitoring solution. But when it comes to application profile, in this case, it's using what's called a drone. And the drone is installed on a different system. And with application profile monitoring, you could set it up to where it would use macros to copy the navigation of your website, how you're navigating, clicks, and so forth. And then taken together, it will run this script and poll it each time it goes out there and polls for that application. And so that's what this is doing as the end user script monitor in application profile monitoring. So you're watching it in action here. And this is basically how it will work. So it basically mimics your transaction on the web, on a particular website. And each poll, it goes out there and runs through that process. And it will tell you if it's loading correctly, if it's in a warning state, etc. It'll just go through that process. So what you're seeing there in the background now, that pop-up there, it's basically showing you how on the site where the drone is installed, it will basically go through that macro script and it will run the query, and then, of course, you'll get a result. So that is the one aspect of the application profile that that you'll be able to see here with application profile monitoring. Now, let me jump back over to What's Up Gold, and over here under this components, let me show this screen. All right, and so I'm showing this now. So there are other profiles here. You could always import profiles. As I mentioned, you could define your own profiles. Under the application monitoring dashboard, this is where you'll go to see all your dashboards. You will see all application and whatever time frame you're looking at. So let's say I want to go back previous month. I'm going to see in previous month time, there's things like the SLA. Was it down? Were they up? SLA is going to show you the trend over time, so it's above 75%. We can make it specific to an application. You don't have to do it as as all application at once. We could say, okay, let me just focus now on SQL Server. So any application that you have something configured for, you'll see a number. In this case, I have one for SQL 2016 applied, and previous month I'm looking at SQL 2016. And so overall, I can tell you much of the application went up 86% of the time. What was done was a few services, which is what you'll see down here. And there's specific reasons why you'll see those. But other than that, that's just one application. You could, as I mentioned, you could use different types of applications. You could define your own to get that overall look of how that application is performing. So, and with as with any other monitoring in What's Up Gold, you could set up action policies where in this case, as you can see here, just like the core product, you have various options in terms of policies that you can define. And when you define these policies, you could also determine at which state you want these alerts to be triggered. Unlike the core side, which will alert you on up or down, application profile monitoring also gives you the option for warning, which is also a good thing because as IT professionals, you want to be ahead of the issues before they're reported by the end users. So it's best for you to get a warning alert long before it's down, where it's completely down, and then you're left scrambling. So we give you 3 options there. In fact, there are 4 options: maintenance, up, warning, or down, in terms of the alerting that you can leverage here for application profile monitoring. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions about APM monitoring.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Mark did a great job on that. Sorry, that's confusing. We're both Marks here today. We're going to wrap up in a second, but I just wanted to cover a few more bases because I know we're focused here today on application monitoring and monitoring application performance, which is something that What's Up Gold can do. But as I mentioned earlier, it does that by monitoring the entire application stack and the rest of your network, pretty much anything that can be plugged into it. Other things you can monitor include bandwidth consumption, how much bandwidth is being used and where. Traffic monitoring, your network traffic analysis, what are your top talkers, who's using up all that traffic capability. It can monitor both on-premise, virtual, or cloud-based resources, your overall network performances, wireless network. It can monitor device configuration. So if a router configuration changes, or if you need to add a bunch of new devices and they're all using the same configuration, you can automatically apply it or revert to that if that's a regulation requirement. We do log management as well. That's a new feature we've added. It's just another diagnostic tool that we've put all under the same issue. And pretty much it allows us to monitor anything with an IP address or a MAC address or pretty much anything that can plug into your network. It's a very functional, very vendor agnostic and context heavy tool. It's something that's going to let you take a look at your entire network without being reliant upon one particular vendor, and it's a diagnostic tool that makes it very, very easy to find where issues exist. And with that said, I'm going to call it done. If you're interested in giving What's Up Gold a try, you're more than welcome to try a 14-day free trial. Go over to whatsupgold.com, click on any big red button that says free trial on pretty much any page. You're also more than welcome to submit some questions to us out there if we don't get to yours today or if something occurs to you later. But with that said, I'm going to wrap things up. Thank you very much for your time and move on to the question and answer period.
Excellent presentation and demo. Really appreciate that, Mark. While we do some Q&A, I'm just going to bring up this poll for everyone out there that asks what additional information would you like about the Progress Software Solution. Specifically here, we're talking about What's Up Gold. So we'll just leave that up. We encourage your feedback on the poll question. And let's start off with a few questions that have come in for you, Mark, from the audience. Let's see, Bradford's asking, what's the minimum server, requirement, roughly to be able to run this type of monitoring? And does this deploy in the cloud, or would this run on premises, say in a virtual machine?
This will run on premise. We do have customers who run it on a virtual machine, which we don't really recommend. It can be done. It's not a problem. It's just it introduces additional levels of complexity that can occasionally mess with your monitoring. You can run it in a cloud device as well, same issues, same reasons, but we do not offer it as a cloud service or a SaaS product at the moment. Honestly, off the top of my head, I cannot recall specifically what the minimum requirements are, but they're pretty darn low. If you go through to, give me a second, I can probably look that up. But if you go through and go to the free trial, it will tell you before you download it. But they're quite minimal. It's not. This is not a highly processor-intensive application. It is something that you can download. Again, we've got a free trial. It will go out and find everything connected to your network, ask you what you want to monitor, and get you up and operating within about 30 minutes. But any Windows server, I should specify, any Windows server is more than capable of running it. I'm trying to think unless you've got something really, really old or really, really underpowered, you shouldn't have a problem.
Excellent. And then kind of a follow-up question here from Tony. He's asking, what about scalability? Like, what's the, I don't know if there's a maximum number of endpoints that this can monitor, but just what about scale as the company and endpoints grow?
That's a really good question, and unfortunately it's a hard one to answer because scalability can mean a bunch of different things. What What's Up Gold will do is it will allow you to choose a device or an application and say, I want to monitor this. And you can apply as many monitors to that device or application as you'd like. The problem is the more monitors you apply, the more complex the system gets. And there is an actual, physical is the wrong term, but an actual practical limit to what the system can handle. Now it's in the tens of thousands, but I don't want to just give you a number of like, yeah, we'll scale up to 20,000 or 50,000 devices, because if you've got, let's say, 10,000 devices or applications with one monitor assigned to each one, like you only want to know if it's up or down, sure, we'll go up to 50,000 maybe. If you've got, if you want to know, CPU levels, heat levels, you're monitoring 20 different things on that device, then you're going to have more trouble getting to that point. So we try not to give a hard and fast number, but I will say it's in the thousands of devices, and we treat applications pretty much like devices. You do have to monitor the device, obviously, that the application lives on, as I kind of mentioned earlier, but we license application monitoring separately, and for each application, or each application source, we charge a particular application monitoring license on top of the device license. And when I say application source, that I can, if you've got one, you're seldom looking at more than 3, 5, in large networks maybe up to 10, but it's really at what point can we monitor an application and track it all the way through the network. So we're not talking for every single individual application necessarily, but for each server that's running applications that you want to monitor.
Got it. Okay.
That answered the question.
And then, yeah, I really like the idea of this application monitoring. So if What's Up Gold discovers an application's down or not responding, what are the options around, what actions can it take to remediate?
A ton. First of all, you're going to send an alert. No matter what, you want an alert to go to someone, even if the application is just slow. The alerts can go out through email, through text or SMS, basically. You can have them pop up on the web. The WhatsUp Gold is completely accessed through the web. There is no client. It's installed in the server, and you log in through your browser. So, if you're using it or it's a part of your NOC system, for example, it will flash up, hey, we've got an alert here. The network map, which I think you saw in the background of a couple of Mark's demonstrations, shows your network at a glance, and if something goes wrong, you'll see a state change. The device or the application will turn red, and we can make that flash as well, so it's more eye-catching. Most importantly, though, you can also reach out through other tools like Slack. Again, when you've got something major going on, you want your entire IT team to know about it. So you can send a Slack message as well. We do support pagers if you can find a modem that still supports pagers, but yeah, we can still beep some people. That's still something some people have been asking for. It sounds obsolete, but it's out there. But the two big items are the PowerShell script triggering. Any alert can trigger a PowerShell script, and that's how you enable those self-healing actions I mentioned. So with a little bit of scripting, you can do anything. The other piece that's enabled in there is we support for something called If This Then That, which makes it very easy to program some very basic responses based on alerts. So for example, we've got customers who wanted lights to flash if a certain alert went on. They've got a room with a bunch of people, and they've got one of the big, police-style dome lights sitting there, and if something goes down, that light starts spinning, and that's something that was triggered through WhatsUp Gold. And there's integrations with a couple of trouble ticket tracking systems as well. So sorry, the name escapes me off the top of my head, but I do know that you can just automatically submit a support ticket as well, which in the case of an application isn't necessarily going to be the best way, but it depends on what the organization has in terms of a process. Usually an application issue you're going to want to respond to faster than that.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have in our live Q&A session here, Mark. But it's been great having you on the event. Great presentation. Really appreciate the live demo there as well. Thank you for being on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks very much for having us, and hopefully everyone found this interesting.
Absolutely. For more information on Progress, check out the handout that's available there in your audience console. It's a data sheet on the Progress WhatsUp Gold solution, application performance monitoring. And as Mark said, visit the Progress website, and you can try out WhatsUp Gold for yourself. Thank you, everyone who responded to the poll. Let me go ahead and just announce our next Amazon $500 gift card. This is going to Aaron Valente from Massachusetts. Congratulations. So one more gift card to give out on the event today.
And now, I'm excited to introduce you to our next presenters. Welcome Mr. Mike Roski, Technical Director of Product Marketing at Nutanix, and Mr. Alan Epps, Partner Sales Engineer at SUSE. Mike and Alan, it's great to have you. Take it away.
Excellent. Thanks, David. It's great to be here. Always enjoy our time together, though it has been a while, so we have to make this more frequent.
Absolutely. Always great to learn from you, Mike. I know you've got a ton of knowledge on this topic, so thanks for being here. Take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you. So today we are talking about platform security and general security, and the way I like to frame this is in terms of something that we're all seeing and hearing about in the news today from a security perspective, and this kind of will back into the platform or IT infrastructure security. So ransomware or malware, it's a big deal. It's in the news heavy. I don't know if everyone grasps the magnitude of the problem. We start looking at some of the statistics that we are seeing. It's pretty insane. Like every 16 days of downtime. And so if you're on this call and you're managing IT infrastructure or applications, what service does you offer your organization they can tolerate 16 days of downtime on? When I was on the other side and not in the vendor space and as an IT practitioner in the healthcare world, asking for a maintenance window, you got screams of horror if you needed a few hours on a weekend. That was obviously healthcare was a 24/7, but almost rarely can you afford this kind of downtime. similarly, the general cost of billions of dollars of lost potential opportunity, lost sales, the time spent recovering, and these attacks getting more and more frequent every day, all the time. And if we just kind of back this into like looking at what they really mean, what happens here. So in general, ransomware always starts with some kind of either attack or some kind of a bait as part of that attack. Phishing is one of the most common areas where these things happen, where they're sending an email or a text message, getting somebody to click on a malicious link. And the sophistication really varies, but it's getting really, really sophisticated. Some high-value organizations are targeted in such a way that they're even copying internal login screens. So it appears like you're getting, oh, please provide your credentials again to log back into email to steal people's information. Insane how level of sophistication is getting. After that, there's the infection period. So ransomware itself likes to hide for a while. It doesn't, while it's doing background encryption, background tasks, and it gives it time to both reach out to command and control, reach out to the operator, say, hey, I found a victim. I'm in here doing bad things and doing encryption, and to try to spread wider into the environment. The wider it spreads, the better hold it has in an organization, and possibly planting also additional backdoors or ways for them to get back in after attack might be partially cleaned. So a lot goes on during this point. And then the panic phase. The most common one we all think about is that screen pops up on an actual desktop where they're asking for Bitcoin and showing that the environment's blocked. But more than likely in the enterprise world, it's an application start misbehaving, things start failing, panic of why things are failing. Sounds like the previous speaker probably hit a lot of that monitoring side. Like, how do we know when things are failing? It's probably a good tip to take away from them with what's up on knowing things are starting to have a problem. And last, you have this situation where, okay, what do we do? Ideally, you want to have some choices. Do you recover or do you pay? Can I recover? Do I have safe backups? Cost, is it cheaper to pay versus cost of downtime? Can I even trust the owner of this ransomware attack that if I pay them, they'll turn it off? But the reason I bring this kind of up is a lot of these things all start around security best practices and securing a platform. And when we think about how do we get more secure, one of these ways, and what we firmly believe at Nutanix, is that it's everyone's responsibility to do this, including infrastructure architects. And it sounds like, what's the security team's job? But really, it's everyone's job. It's something part of your role. You'll have some factor that you can contribute. One of those is how you design and implement your data centers. If you're doing a redesign, if you're doing an expansion, the choices you make impact security. And that's really what it comes down to. You can do something. You can make certain choices. You can stop and pause and say, does this help or hurt my security posture? Is this going to create more work for me and my security team, depending on what I choose? Do I need these additional tools? Do I not need these additional tools? So I'm hoping to hit on a couple of these topics, and you may think about your infrastructure purchases as you go forward within this. So Nutanix and HCI, I would say even generically, the concept of hyperconvergence reduces some of the different vendors you need in your environment from a storage and virtualization perspective. So definitely from a traditional three-tiered SAN NAS, storage network, then virtualization. If you can get out some of those components, that's less blind spots, less complexity, less hardening guides to read. So in general, HCI is a better foundation. I think Nutanix is even better than in general HCI for that. That's, of course, my maybe selfish opinion about what we do at Nutanix and hyperconvergence. But you do want to reduce their footprint as much as you can. And then you also want to see, is there native features and functions built into the platform that are going to make your daily job easier or let you sleep better at night? So things like software secure design lifecycle, which I'm going to talk a lot about, baseline remediation of everything that's going on from a configuration perspective. Does the platform offer native data protection? Does it do availability, resiliency, secondary copies, integration with backup, data at rest encryption? What kind of role-based access control can I implement? Can I do multi-factor access control? Multi-factor is a huge one in that phishing world that I talked about early on in ransomware. If just more companies had multi-factor as many places as they could, phishing attacks would be so less effective. Stealing your credential is one thing, but if they don't have that token or that Google Authenticator device or Okta Authenticator, that credential is way less useful. So think about that from a perspective of, does your platform even have an opportunity to turn on something like multi-factor authentication? But this topic we really wanted to talk about today was really about platform security and configuration. I'll like to start at the beginning. Is what is the platform vendor, which is myself and Nutanix here, what can we do to make our customers' lives easier? And it really comes down to focusing on the security and design lifecycle, meaning we're developing code. We are doing security audits. We are using static and composition tools like Black Duck, which is a third-party tool. And we think about what happened recently with the supply chain attacks with that big monitoring vendor. Everyone wants to know, well, is there anything I'm including in my software vulnerable? So being able to do that kind of continuous analysis is very important. Looking at open source packages or libraries that you may include, doing a big code analysis for those things changing. We do a lot of that. Every piece of software, every functional spec is reviewed by a detailed security team asking the questions like, well, is this API secured? Are you doing the right things using secure encryption? Are you authenticating connections between internal components? Also do penetration testing, hiring security experts to attack the software internally in our Q&A process to look for any unfound vulnerabilities and methodologies so we can make sure those are shored up. As well as trying to adhere to different security standards. So from an encryption perspective, things like FIPS, making sure that we hit common criteria rules. We're working with other DoD standards as well to make sure we're hitting those, and that just helps us deliver a more secure product to our customers. We also have a general philosophy about secure configurations, not putting that burden on you as the implementer to apply all of our best practices. Anybody who's done an IT implementation has seen the security hardening guide from the vendor. They're necessary. It shows you what the best practices are. It shows you what the steady state is supposed to be. But it is our opinion that we should be able to deliver the product to you with most of those best practices already applied. Maybe ask a few questions or push you in a certain direction. But outside of that, why does it have to be delivered insecure and put all the onus on the IT teams to turn this stuff on? So what we've done is create these best practice guides. We've used DoD and government secure technical implementation guides as a basis for these, so they're inspired and include a lot of those recommendations for things like the core OS or web servers, as well as ones that were custom written for our software. And we do put that into both a readable guide you can hand to an auditor and say this is how Nutanix is secured, and it's also done in a software-specific way where it's programmatic. We have automation tools, and we call it secure configuration management automation. This guide fits into, and it reviews the server and the whole platform configuration, looking for anything that's out of normal. Someone's added a local user. There are password complexity rules that have been turned off. The firewall has been modified that protects the internal components that should normally be turned on. And sometimes these things happen not in a malicious way. Maybe it's doing a support operation or diagnostics, and you turn things off to collect data or try things for support, and someone forgets to turn them back on. The beauty of this automation is it's going to go back through and review and check those settings. And if anything's off, minimally you get notified, but the default is to set those configurations back since that's the default. And there's also no testing required. We already know that the system is tested in our QA. It's deployed this way. The expectation is following these guides is how the system works. The support team's never going to ask you to turn off the security to make that happen. So the net of this is that as new software comes out, you can just deploy it, and you don't have to worry so much about the time. If you have to do accreditation, let's say if you're in the retail space and you're doing PCI, or you're in healthcare and you need to do HIPAA, you've got the guidelines, and you also have evidence for your auditors and evidence for your documentation that the best practices are not just set on some day zero, but they're going to be constantly reset and validated without requiring, say, a third-party piece of software to come in and do that kind of work. So it's really good to have this kind of a secure platform and modeling it within that infrastructure. Then the next part of this is really about updates. Patch is kind of one of these best practices, and I talked about the way ransomware gets in. Now, phishing is the most popular method. I would say the next method is finding software vulnerabilities. Just kind of a side note here. Most of us who play in the cybersecurity world may know this, but a lot of people have this misconception that it's this mysterious zero-day or unknown vulnerability that's out there causing and wreaking the most havoc. Though statistically, the most successful attacks are old vulnerabilities, stuff that got missed, didn't get patched properly, or that one dark, dusty server in the corner that everyone forgot about and no one's applied patches to in 2 years. So you may be really current with all the latest, the worst, scariest things, but is there something you missed from 2 years ago and didn't cover that in one of your patch windows? And I believe that one of the things with patching and updates and why there are challenges there is because it's so disruptive. And I don't know if any of you on this call are Nutanix customers, but one of the first things that customers realize with us is that one of our promises is we maybe overuse the term one-click for upgrades. But the idea is, can we deliver you software that takes as much of the interruption out of the update process as possible? And we have a tool called Lifecycle Manager in part of our upgrades. It upgrades everything from the BMC and BIOS of the hardware that we're running on, all of our different software components. It has the logic built in to handle all of the compatibility matrix and version control. So if I need to update a piece of the hypervisor software that we call AHV, it'll tell you, oh, well, in order to do that, you need to upgrade these other packages as well, including the main Nutanix software. It also handles all of the workload automation to put things in a maintenance mode, migrate workloads off of the servers of our hypervisor. So it can be as fairly non-disruptive depending on the upgrade you're talking about. There may be workloads moving for live migration in the virtualization world, but you're not having to power things off and disable services. And that's the general goal, is to do this as much as possible. And the point I'm trying to make here from a security and platform perspective is the easier updates are to apply, the more likely you're going to apply them and schedule them more frequently. You're not going to wait 6 months between maintenance windows because it's such a painful process. So I hopefully that really resonates with everyone that we're talking to today. So that was the kind of the general idea of this. I think there's another area that we're going to dig into. I don't know about if David, if we're going to allude to that, but the idea was to take this the next level down to the software itself. So you talk secure the platform, and then take the same steps and use software tools to secure the applications and operating systems that are running on a platform like Nutanix's.
Thanks, Mike. Great presentation. And now let's move on and turn it over to Alan from SUSE.
Hello, my name is Alan Epps. I'm one of the sales engineers here at SUSE. Today I'd like to speak with you about how Nutanix and SUSE, specifically with the SUSE Manager software, can partner together to do a better job of securing our clients' enterprise, as well as simplifying their management and configuration. SUSE Manager is a fully certified AHV partner software that also works in Amazon, Azure, and Google Cloud environments. It allows the content lifecycle management to be significantly easier than with home-cooked scripts or with most other management platforms, allowing you to easily push software configurations from dev through QA onto production via a single UI task. SUSE Manager supports the following distributions. Fully supported at a commercial level is SUSE, Red Hat, Oracle Linux, Ubuntu Linux, and Amazon Linux is currently in its final testing phase, which should be released at the end of the month or early next. From a functional standpoint, open source distributions that are supported is OpenSUSE, CentOS, and Debian. So not only do we support the management and migration of the commercial OSs, but also the upstream OSs that feed those. SUSE Manager can provision straight onto bare metal or VM layers like AHV, as well as into any of the supported cloud environments. What this allows you to do is build a base configuration and push them to any of those structures that you have within your hybridized environment today. This enables complete software repository management, giving you point-in-time images that can be end-user defined, allowing the consistency across your dev and test and QA, as well as being able to enforce limitations in those environments like a production line where the last thing you want is something new. You can define those repositories, subscribe those systems to those repositories, and they don't get anything beyond the time point definition surrounding that individual repo. Client systems subscribe to the repos as needed. So if you have systems that are, for instance, database systems, They don't need development tools on them. They don't need web servers on them. You can have them subscribe to systems that are to repositories that are just designed for databases, and they'll only get the database updates and structures without being required to get the other pieces that they don't need. Same with Dev and QA. They probably don't need databases very often. You can have those just go to Dev and QA repositories without getting the other pieces that they don't need. This also ties into the patch management. The SUSE Manager patching only patches those things that are installed local to the box. So if there are patches that are generic across the entire enterprise, but aren't specific to that machine, they never get installed unless you force them on with a configuration that we'll talk about a little bit later. So in general, the only thing that gets patched is software that's already on the box, unless you're defining a new install of new software, and you can do that with the template system. The other thing SUSE Manager gives you is an automated audit process for those systems that are subscribed. This can be based off of the CVE vulnerabilities in the repository metadata for any individual distribution, and soon against the NIST database directly. There is a tool under development that should be released in the next few months that will enable this CVE query directly against NIST, and then will tell the end user of the SUSE Manager system what vendors have released what software against any given CVE, because they're not always released at the same time. The audit also flags those systems with patches available, and those flags can be ranked by severity. So when you audit the system, it can tell you everything that's available for it, but it'll rank those that are of the day zero critical vulnerability kind of stuff. It'll rank higher than those things that are easy bug fixes that aren't necessarily dangerous to the system or the end user environment. SUSE Manager can schedule reboots of your environment or have them end user triggered per your business requirements. So for certain systems that are easy to patch, that have very little impact if they go down unexpectedly, you can have that an automated trigger. But again, for those production line systems or those database systems where if they go down, the business isn't adversely impacted, you can have things set up so that the end user is the only one who can trigger that reboot as needed. You can also have it set up so that the end user triggers the entire patching process. So instead of an agent on the remote system dialing home to check if patches are available, it can instead be triggered by the system administrator at the endpoint to trigger back. So if you've got systems that are in a limited bandwidth environment, or you've got systems that from a business case need less centralized control, that can be done through the system as well. SUSE also offers a live patching structure that is an additional subscription for SUSE Commercial Linux, where a box can subscribe to live patching, subscribe to a live patching repository, and it is separate from the standard SUSE repository. And that system can reboot or can patch without needing to reboot. So for instance, if you've got a HANA database system or a box that's running your factory production floor, taking an outage on those systems can be exceedingly painful. Using live patching, you don't need to take an outage on those systems for up to a year. Technically, you could push beyond a year, but support and engineering ask that we actually have it set up so that you reboot at least once a year. And the reason for that is if you've patched the kernel 3 or 4 times in a year and you've patched the underlying C libraries 3 or 4 times in a year, the memory management for redirection of those queries to the appropriate place can become difficult and can become overly complex. And so from a supportability standpoint, we ask that you reboot the system once a year. The other thing that SUSE Manager brings to the platform is real-time orchestration and configuration management. You can do this through the UI on SUSE Manager, as well as through things like Puppet configurations or Ansible scripts, Ansible playbooks. You can define the states you wanted for a given configuration, subscribe those systems to those states, and it will automatically enforce that configuration, be it limiting the configuration to that or getting a configuration up to date to that state file. It automatically audits and enforces as needed. It uses a standardized and customizable form within the SUSE Manager UI, as well as, again, the external pieces, be they Puppet or Ansible. So you don't actually have to retrain your infrastructure folks to be able to deploy this, maintain this, and assure your environment is stable and configured as you want moving forward. This works, again, on-prem, in the cloud, or in a hybrid environment, allowing you to easily manage the complexity of your security and your configuration across all of those environments from a single locale. This partnership between Nutanix and SUSE enables our clients to have a more stable, more secure environment, better intelligence on the environment and its stance, and a continuation of that configuration where appropriate across the enterprise. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to either the Nutanix or the SUSE team, and we will try and get you the information you request. Thank you. Have a good day.
That was the end of what I really want to talk about today. So David, maybe we can just take a couple questions from the audience about this, or maybe you have some thoughts about this topic as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and start our Q&A. I'm going to bring up a poll question for everyone out there. We can just leave that up while we take your questions. We do have a number of questions coming in. I want to encourage everyone, to submit your questions on this topic. We're still running our best question prize on this event, so keep those coming. The question on the screen is, what additional information would you like about the Nutanix and SUSE solution? First question for you, Mike, they're asking is about policy framework. Is there something that's built in regarding a policy framework for inbuilt hardening?
Yep. So mostly the framework that we leverage is DISA-STIG. So that's the Secure Technical Implementation Guides from the DoD. And we try to use that entire framework everywhere we can. So if you think about like the base operating system that us and many vendors use is typically Linux-based. So they have a number of constraints, and this is how Linux should be hardened according to the federal government and the Department of Defense, and that's like three-letter agencies. So we're doing that across the operating system. There's a similar guides for web services and other system applications. So we're taking all of that and applying that as a standard. And then it is actually a framework of how you lay out these rules in a way that you can be in a human readable as well as a programmatic interpretation. So we provide our own software components that aren't kind of these normal packages. We provide those in that same STIG format as well as the human readable side. So that is how we follow it, as well as certifications for different ISO standards or things like the common criteria. And if the audience is interested in some of the standards that we follow both for our production software as well as we do in the cloud from a SaaS offering, it's a simple URL. It's nutanix.com/trust, and that provides you all of the information about the software development lifecycle that I talked about, as well as the different security standards that we've complied to now, and also some of the ones that are in process.
Excellent. And when you talk about everything that Lifecycle Manager can keep up to date, you talked even all the way down to the hardware level, is that right?
Yes, and that can be a crazy one. I know it's been a while since we all had the mad dash because of Spectre and Meltdown, where everyone was having to quickly update the BIOS of their Intel boxes. But yes, so Nutanix is pretty much a platform and hardware agnostic platform, so we support running on HP, Dell, Cisco, our own Supermicro-based platforms, and I apologize to any hardware vendors that I may have missed because it's a pretty good list. But it can upgrade both the out-of-band management software as well as the BIOS for many of those, and we're constantly adding them. And we're leveraging some of the new BIOS techniques out there to make that faster and faster. So BIOS is a disruptive operation, but with a tool like this, when you're running a virtualization platform on that hardware, the Lifecycle Manager can migrate the workloads off of those boxes, take care of that low-level hardware BIOS maintenance, and then migrate things back. So it's pretty non-disruptive, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely. That's critical, and to be able to do that in an automated fashion and ensure no downtime while you perform these updates is really cool. There's a question from Bradford about, can Lifecycle Manager work in the cloud as well as on premises?
So today, I will give kind of answer. So Nutanix has an offering called Clusters, which is Nutanix running on public cloud operators. So there's an offering that is generally available now in AWS and early access and testing in Azure, and we're planning on delivering Nutanix on GCP as well as other major cloud providers. So in that environment, yes, where you can upgrade Nutanix, use that to upgrade the Nutanix components no matter where they're running. Using Lifecycle Manager to upgrade third-party options, right now it's been primarily looking at the different hypervisors that we operate on, which is our own plus others to do their upgrades, as well as doing the BIOS pieces. So we haven't gotten beyond that for like a greater generic upgrade managing tool, but it is something we're thinking about using that framework for.
Very nice. And there's a question here about Nutanix Prism. What's the difference between Lifecycle Manager and Prism, and how do the two integrate?
So it's more of a generational thing. So Lifecycle Manager runs inside of Prism. So Prism is our management tool for those who are not familiar with Nutanix. That is our web-based GUI that we manage our entire system, including our hypervisor and the HCI portions from. So within Prism, you get access to what I would say is the older upgrade method, which we call one-click. The one-click upgrades were from when Nutanix was primarily doing HCI only. So it was there to upgrade Nutanix's primary software as well as our hypervisor. Then you fast forward a little bit, we introduced Lifecycle Manager, and that's where all of the additional new things are coming in. So Lifecycle Manager is really like plug-in based. So as our different software components, they'll build plugins into Lifecycle Manager to upgrade other Nutanix pieces of software or other hardware vendors, BIOS upgrades. So you get access to all of it, and there you really, moving forward, the goal is to deprecate or not need the older style Prism updates, and you'll only use Lifecycle Manager for everything. And it's accessible both from Prism Element, which is our element manager, as well as our centralized manager, Prism Central.
Very cool. Yeah, thanks for explaining that. There's a question here. They're asking, what tools do you use for the lifecycle management or the patching? Can it be scheduled, or does it need to be on demand? How does that work with automating the patching or the updates?
Right now, so there's a little view into the roadmap. Right now, it is pretty much an on-demand functionality. It does schedule the order of operations. So if there are different pieces that have to be done to make sure you complete the upgrade properly, it handles that ordering of different software components. The idea of scheduling the kickoff of the upgrade is something that we're working on from the roadmap side, but it doesn't deliver that today.
Yeah, I mean, that might not be something you actually want. I know
right.
With my personal computer, you kind of want to review the upgrades before they just magically happen overnight. But yeah,
I could see an idea of queuing them up while you're still standing there, and then you're still going to have a maintenance window. I would never tell someone you don't have a maintenance window where you prep people that something could go wrong. But we like to say that this tool gives you a lot more confidence because it's going to schedule everything as far as order of operations, and you can just hit the go button and then just sit back and hope nothing bad happens, which it usually doesn't. That's kind of the old days of maintenance windows, a lot of manual tasks. This becomes just you're on standby just in case you need to be, action is required by the operator. So it's a much easier methodology.
Right, absolutely. And does it handle the dependencies as well? I mean, you need to upgrade this before that?
Yes, that's kind of one of the key portions of that. And as we add more and more software offerings with Nutanix, as we offer file services and network security services outside of the hypervisor and the key HCI software, it does the upgrades for all these different components. It will let you know that, there's a really cool new feature in say, a file services offering. And so it will tell you, in order to get to that feature, you need to upgrade your HCI. Here's the version. And it takes care of all the downloading and staging of all that as well. So it kind of gives you this, inventories your entire platform. It shows you the upgrades that are available across everything you have installed, which includes also things like our diagnostic software that we provide for checking the cluster health and all of that, and itself. If upgrades are to LCM, Lifecycle Manager, it lets you see what the dependencies are to use those new features.
Excellent. And so is this something that's included with Nutanix, or is it licensed per device, or how does that work?
Lifecycle was included. We don't charge additional for Lifecycle Management. It's really, if you're using Nutanix, we firmly believe it should be really easy to update. So this is the primary way. So for many of our newer components, it's the only way they upgrade. They're just built at a time when LCM existed. Therefore, that's your default method of upgrades. There are some older components that may have some other options, but essentially this is free for everyone to use if you're an Nutanix customer using one of these products.
Very cool. And I think that's a great place to wrap it up. So included with Nutanix, automates your upgrades, makes lifecycle management easy. Sounds like a great solution. How should people get started with this, Mike?
Absolutely. I would take a look at Nutanix, and we have something called a test drive. So if you look at our Nutanix's homepage, Nutanix.com, there are test drives. Test drives are fully functional, small instances hosted in the cloud of a Nutanix system. And it's a combination of a guided walkthrough of web interface as well as live UI. So you can click on everything. It's all a real environment. And you can go through the guided instructions or not. And there's some stuff about upgrades, stuff about using virtualization, the secure platform, and even other things I didn't talk about today. But definitely check out a test drive and get your hands on the tool with very low overhead and spend a few minutes with us.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds like a great way to try this out for yourself out there. Do it in your web browser. Just try it out for free. Gain access to it with the test drive. Mike, it's been great having you on. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Good as always. Have a good day, David.
You too. And thank you to Nutanix for supporting the EcoCast today. For more information, check out the handout that's available for download there in your audience console. And of course, visit Nutanix.com. You can sign up for the Nutanix test drive. It's free, it's easy to do, and it's the best way to get access to your own hands-on Nutanix environment. And with that, I'll leave up the poll question for anyone out there who hasn't responded yet. We, of course, appreciate your response to the poll on the screen, and I'll announce the final Amazon $500 gift card winner. This is going to Casey Coleman from Utah. Congratulations, Casey Coleman from Utah. Congrats to all the prize winners on the event today. We also have our best question prizes. We'll be contacting those prize winners after the EcoCast. And I will post the prize winners here in the questions box right now for everyone to see. And with that, it's time to wrap up the EcoCast today. Before you go, I just want to remind you to make sure that you check out our podcast over in the iTunes store, the 10 on Tech podcast. If you are a potential sponsor of an upcoming EcoCast or MegaCast event, reach out to us at connect@actualtechmedia.com. And I hope to see you next week. We will be running another one of our big Discovery Days events. This is a multi-day event with the first day kicking off on Tuesday, March 23rd at 12 o'clock Eastern. The topic is streamlining, securing, protecting cloud, IT, and business operations. And this is going to be similar to the EcoCast here in concept, but very fast-paced. You'll see 15 presentations. There'll be 12 minutes each, just one right after the other on day one. And on day one, you can select which topics you're most interested in, which topics you would like to learn more about, and you'll be automatically invited to a follow-up deep dive presentation happening on Wednesday or Thursday for each one of the 15 different innovative IT solutions. So this is going to be a fun event. I hope to see you on the Discovery Day happening on Tuesday, March 23rd. Thank you so much for being here today on our EcoCast covering tool time, assessing and selecting your next infrastructure and application monitoring tool. I hope that you learned a lot and have a great day. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.